afternoon, it's Janet Hughes here from Gloucestershire Live. I'm sorry about the earlier broadcast that went down. The signal went outside Highgrove, so I've come into Tetbury, which is Prince Charles's, or King Charles III's hometown. I think we'll all have to get used to calling him that now. He's now king after the sad death of his mother, and we're here as the nation mourns the death of Queen Elizabeth, the woman who was a constant thread through all our lives. And I'm here because Tetbury is home for the future king. It's where he actually created his little organic paradise at Highgrove House. It's where Prince Harry grew up, it's where Prince William grew up, and it's where he now lives with Camilla. He's been living about 2 miles from here at Highgrove House since he bought it in 1980 and moved in about 1981, 1982. So this town has a really special place in the home of the royal family, as does a lot of Gloucestershire. Princess Anne lives not far down the road with her family. Zara Tyndall, her daughter, and Peter Phillips, her son. So we've come to Tetbury to see the mood, really, and in this town that's with the royal connections. And one of the first things I did when I come here was I parked up just across the road from there, and I'm just going to try and give you a bit of a flavour. As I climbed out the car, there was 2 ladies. One had come from Birmingham and one had come from local, and they were meeting up, and they'd arranged to meet up. One was 88 and one was 82, and they both, without actually consulting each other, had dressed in black to mourn the Queen. This was their day out, but they were still going to pay respects to the Queen, who, as they said, she's been there all their lives. They can't remember a time without her. So they were here, and like everybody else, the mourning the passing of the Queen, they came to Tetbury, and one of the first things everybody has been doing is to come up to this church, Our Lady's Church, Our Lady Virgin Church, and I'll turn around and let you see it. It's a magnificent church, and it's been the focal point of mourning in this town. Can you see it? People have been coming here all day. And I was speaking to the curate earlier. He was saying they realised people needed a focus. I'm just walking around the church to let you see it. It's a church ground. When I arrived this morning, the church grounds were full. You can see some flowers there. And all these benches here, they were full of people sitting around, not quite knowing what to do, but wanting to come somewhere where they could be together and mourn the Queen. And this is where they came. And all these benches, when I came this morning, were full of people just sitting here. Some were in tears, some were just staring into the middle distance, but all were thinking of their memories and sharing their memories, because a lot of them, they may not have met the Queen, but they know Prince Charles, and they know, or King Charles, excuse me, I keep slipping up there, King Charles. They know King Charles, and they know his family, and he's part of this town. He's part of their community. And he may live in a mansion down the road, but he's been to this church so many times. He's been into town so many times. He drinks in a pub, a country pubs down the road. He's part of this community. Camilla's turned on the lights in Tetbury. When Diana lived here, she brought the boys, Prince William and Prince Harry, to the Christmas lights and was photographed just in the crowd like anybody else. And the boys had their teenage years here, which we'll say no more about that. But this town really does have a connection to the royal family. And I've just been up to Highgrove, where Prince Charles lives, and there's 2 entrances. There's the public entrance where everybody goes when they go to see his gardens, and people come from all over the world to see this organic paradise that King Charles has created. And there's the other gates where the private gates where he and Camilla arrive, his Queen Consort now. And people, it's really not easy to get to because it's on a main road. You have to park up, there's not many places to park up, and you have to walk along a main road to actually get to the gates. But there've been clearly a lot of local people. If you didn't know where to go, it would be very difficult. Excuse me, there's a dog seeing a cat there. But yeah, there's not many people would know where to go. But so clearly a lot of those flowers have been placed by local people. Here we go. It's the church. A lot of the flowers have been placed by local people, and some of the messages were really lovely. There was one, I wanted to show you the messages because they were so sweet, and some of them were quoting Paddington to the Queen and sending messages to the Queen because they obviously are missing hair. But quite a few of them were flowers laid for King Charles III and his Queen Consort. So people here are clearly have got King Charles on their mind. And if you just look down there in the church, there's a book of condolence just under the altar that's been set up for people to sign. People have been coming here since early morning to sign the book of condolence. I've spoken to quite a few people who did, and I'll tell you some of their stories later. The pews this morning, there was people sitting quietly in the pews, just solemnly thinking to themselves and coming to terms with it, really. I don't think people have really come to terms with it. It's only now sinking in exactly that we've lost our Queen, the woman who's been with us for 70 years. So, reigned over us for 70 years. Here we go. There's a church service tonight at this church at 6 p.m. It'll mirror others. There's going to be one in St. Paul's Cathedral where thousands of people are expected, and no doubt there'll be a lot of people here as well. And what's been quite interesting is seeing the range of people coming in and out. There's a lot of people who you might expect. A lot of country folk in the country boots and country wellies and country clothes. There's been elderly couples, there's been tourists, but there's also been a lot of young people that have come in to pay their respects, and I've spoken to some of them. Here we go, the bells are tolling now. This is an echo of what was happening at 12 o'clock this morning, 12 or noon today, when the bells across the country tolled. This churchyard was full of people standing, paying their respects. There we go. I'll let you look here. These are the views. To Her Majesty. This is the church in Tetbury, the home of King Charles and the Queen Consort Camilla. And I was telling you about Highgrove, how hard it is to get to. But that seems to be the main focus for the flowers, and there's lots of bunches of flowers. And a lot of them, the local florist told me that there's been a lot of people coming in to get flowers to lay at Highgrove. And they've been very busy with people coming. But some of the favourites that I'm sure Prince Charles would love, there was an awful lot of flowers from people's gardens. There was a beautiful one, a Waitrose pickle jar full of dahlias. That is really colourful, bright dahlias that have been obviously growing in someone's garden and hand-tied, and they looked absolutely beautiful amongst all these big bunches of flowers from the florist. So that's what's happening at Highgrove. I don't know how long it'll be before Prince Charles will be able to get back to his home, his Gloucestershire home. The home, it now passes to Prince William, as it's owned by the Duchy of Cornwall, and that on the Queen's death goes to Prince William, because the Duchy of Cornwall is a way of the heir to the throne raising money to keep his household. So Prince Charles apparently will be paying rent to stay there, because he sees that as his main private home. He's got lots of residences. He's got Buckingham Palace, he's got Windsor Castle, he's got Dumfries House in Scotland, but the place he calls home is Highgrove here in Gloucestershire, just a mile or two down the road. And that's where people have been laying flowers, no matter how difficult it is. And it's a bit quiet at the moment this afternoon, but this morning this place was absolutely teeming with people who had come along. People had come from all over the place to actually see. So I spoke to the curate of this church. The church is called St Mary the Virgin and St Mary Magdalene. And I think the last time the royals were here on Mass was when Princess Anne's stepdaughter, Zara's stepsister Stephanie, got married. That wasn't so long ago, and the whole family came here. So it is a church that's close to their hearts. They've had many family occasions here. Prince Charles and Camilla have been here quite a lot, and so people are coming here to mourn. And they've got a prayer board inside, and there's quite a lot of prayers. And I'll give you an example of one of them. It says, "Dear God, bless those who mourn, especially our new king, and all family and subjects of this great nation." That was one of them. The prayers that are being pinned to this board. There's condolences. There's a book of condolences that people are queuing up to sign this morning, and there's lots of space for people to reflect. So I spoke to the curate of this place. That's Curate Reverend Steve Bullock, and I was asking him first thing this morning, and he was saying they moved straight away to actually create a space. They had to move quickly because they knew that people would be coming, and they said he just said people need space and time. Some people are very shaken up, they're deeply moved, and they're using this space to process the news. People are deeply saddened and troubled, so we opened it up to give them somewhere to come. And people are lighting the candles and they're saying the prayers. He says people are coming to Highgrove to lay the flowers, he noticed, and then coming to the church. And he says, obviously, because of the local there's lots of local connections to the royal family. So it's a very strong feeling in this town because of the connections to King Charles. And he says it's very appropriate. I don't know if you can see here, the flag is at half-mast. It's been lowered. It's very appropriate that it's a church that people are coming to, because she was head of the Anglican Church, the Church of England, and it's appropriate that the churches give people somewhere to go. So I've been speaking to a few people here. Signing the book of condolences was Jo Roberts. She was a local lady from Tetbury, and she was one of the people who'd waited to sign the book of condolences. When I went to speak to her, she was completely tearful, and she just said to me, "I can hardly speak, I'm sorry." She said, "She's been a constant in my life, and I feel like I've lost a grandmother. I'm sure King Charles will do a great job, but for now I'm mourning the Queen." And she was there, and she was clearly deeply moved. She could hardly speak, but she wanted to pay tribute to the Queen. And then there was Martin Bell. He lives locally. He'd come in, and he just wanted to sign the book of condolences, and talk about how he was a bit shocked about it just happened so quick. Although she was 96 and people were expecting it, I think the end came a lot quicker than people thought. And he was paying tribute to her and saying how hard she worked. And he was once at Malmesbury Abbey and got invited there when the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh came. And he said it was surreal singing God Save the Queen to the Queen when she was actually sitting there not far away from him when they came to look. And he said he could hardly take his eyes off her. She went to the front and plumped up a cushion and made herself comfortable and sat there while Prince Philip looked at the architecture. Another interesting person I talked to was Noel McKinnon. Noel was on holiday from Auckland in New Zealand, and I asked him what it was like back there, you know, obviously part of the Commonwealth. How are they feeling it? And he said he was deeply, deeply moved. That's why he'd had to come to the church. He was a practicing Christian, and by chance he was in Tetbury, and he'd come to the church to pay his respects and say a prayer for the Queen, who he said was a very spiritual woman who lived a life of sacrifice and was adored by people in the Commonwealth, and they hope King Charles will be able to rule as well as she did. And I asked him how it had gone. People back in New Zealand were taking it, and he said he'd spoken to his friend, and his friend was driving along when he heard the news, and he was in the car and he just burst into tears. Now this is a man thousands of miles away in New Zealand, hears the Queen has died and burst into tears. He's driving along. She just touched so many people across the world, didn't she? So Noel and Martin were both here to pay tribute to the Queen and join the other people who stood in solemn silence as the bells tolled out at midday. This churchyard, I don't know if you can see, was pretty full. I'll take you around the town in a minute and show you a bit what's going on in the town. But it was very solemn this morning. The roses you saw there outside the church, I met the lady who placed them. Her name was Wendy Smith. I first saw her in the church and she was absolutely sobbing. I didn't speak to her in the church because she just looked so upset. And then outside, she was standing paying respects as the bells tolled, and I spoke to her then. She seemed to calm down a little bit, and her eyes just filled up again, and she said, I just feel so upset. I feel like part of the family is gone. I'm a big royal fan, and I just can't believe it. It actually just feels like I've lost somebody from my family. And she'd been to the florist and actually asked what flowers the Queen liked, and heard that the Queen liked yellow roses, and placed a bunch of yellow roses outside the church. And she was saying, I was asking her about the connection to the royal family in this town, in Tetbury, in Gloucestershire. And she was saying that as the crow flies, she lives 9 doors away from Prince Charles. Clearly, she doesn't live 9 doors away because he lives in a big estate and she lives in Tetbury. But she says if you take it as the crow flies, she lives 9 doors away from Prince Charles. And she's met him twice in the town. And every time, and she's met Camilla as well. And she says she feels like she knows them. She's met them at events in the town, once at the church, and another when Prince Charles came to the local school and her son was chosen to meet him. So this is how strong his connection is to this town. This is a lady laying flowers there. She's not someone who sees King Charles III as someone who lives in Buckingham Palace. She's someone who's seen King Charles III in her local community, at church, at the local school, within viewing distance of her house. So it's no wonder really, is it, that people actually are so moved here about the death of the Queen and about the sympathy for King Charles and his Queen Consort Camilla, who are part of this community. another lady I spoke to had come all the way from Cardiff. Andrea Mohammed, she was 53. She had to come here because, and she was very upset as well. And the reason she'd come was very interesting. She used to come here from Cardiff with her dad, and her dad loved coming to Tetbury, loved the royal family. They used to come here together, and she was actually here when Diana gave birth to Prince William, and the bells tolled here, and the bells rang out across the town, and she always remembers that from her childhood, that the bells at this church tolling when King Charles and Lady Diana had Prince William when he was born. So she had that lovely memory, but she lost her father at the beginning of the pandemic, and she just felt drawn to come back today. She knew the bells would be ringing again in honour of the Queen. I think it was 96 times they rang, and she wanted to come back, so she came back here and placed some flowers here and at Highgrove. She went down to Highgrove to place them outside the gates where Prince Charles goes in, and paid tribute, signed the book of condolences. So as you can hear, that it's just been a non-stop stream of people coming to this church, paying their respects, and actually having sympathy for Prince Charles. I'm just going to go for a walk now. Prince Charles, I don't know, can you see? It's so beautiful and peaceful, this churchyard at the moment. So lovely. I could just take you to the steps, I'm sure they won't mind. I spoke to the curate earlier and he was quite happy for us to film from here. So I'll take you to the steps, and then I'll take you for a little walk through town and show you a few things about this town. There we go, there's the flowers again. It is a beautiful place. There we go. And up this ramp that Prince Charles and Camilla have walked up so many times themselves. King Charles. There we go. Just take you into the entrance to show you what we've got here. I don't know if you can read that. You're warmly invited to add your own message to the Book of Condolence. You may also like to light a candle and write your own prayer to add to the prayer wall at the front, giving thanks for the life of Queen Elizabeth II, remembering the royal family at this sad time, and asking for God's blessing on our new King. Gracious God, we give thanks for the life of your servant, Queen Elizabeth, for her faith and her dedication to duty. Bless our nation as we mourn her death, and may her example continue to inspire us through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. And there will be a special service tonight in this church. I won't film in the house of God, but I shall bring you out here now. And I'll take you for a walk through Tetbury, shall I, to show you this beautiful town that's been home to our King for decades now. He chose this as his town. His sister, Princess Anne, doesn't live far away, and it's right here in Gloucestershire, in the Cotswolds. And I'll touch it. As we walk out here, I'll give you a little guide. I don't know if you know it. There's the flag. It's a very beautiful town. Now, here's the visitor centre. They are used to having hordes of tourists here. It's the Royal Connection, attracts people. and it's closed today. There's a notice on the door saying it's closed. And we'll come up here and I'll show you a bit more, because what's interesting, just up here, you might have seen the TV programme about the Hobbs brothers. And here we have Hobbs House Bakery, the Hobbs brothers. Oh, it's closed. It was open this morning, but clearly closes at 2. Now, what was quite interesting, if you look here, the cycle tour of Gloucestershire, the National Cycle Tour, that was supposed to come through here. Oh, I don't know if you can hear me. The cycle tour was supposed to come through here at 1 o'clock, and it was cancelled. And obviously a lot of people had come to stay for that event. And when I came through earlier, there was a lot of people in Lycra in the church and milling around. And I spoke to there's a gentleman there. There's lots of cyclists here outside the blue zucchini. And outside there was cyclists who'd come for the day. And I asked them, they were all there in the Lycra, really looking forward to it. And I thought, they must be very, very disappointed. So I spoke to Alistair Wishart and Craig Dalby, and they said that basically they'd taken the day off work, so they realised last night it had been cancelled, or this morning, but they'd taken the day off work and they thought they'll come anyway. And I asked them were they upset it had been cancelled, and Alistair, the youngest of the two, just looked at me as if, like, well, we couldn't do anything else, could we? What else could we do? We just couldn't do anything else. And Craig, who was his father-in-law, said, I think the Queen's a bit more important than any bike ride, isn't she? And I think that says it all, really. This town was looking forward to it. There was lots of visitors come to see it. But a bike ride, no matter how important it is, pales into insignificance when you're talking about the death of the Queen. Now I'm going to take you around the corner because I want to show you something else at the moment. This is a town that is full of antique shops and coffee shops and tourists. There we go. Wherever you go in this town, look, this is the estate agents, Perry Bishop, pictures of the Queen. There we go, I don't know if you can see that. Pictures are really beautiful pictures of her as a young woman. You forget how beautiful she was, don't you? And here we go. It's such a sombre mood. There's a lot of people in black, but a lot of people are carrying on as normal, but the mood is very sombre. You can see the Union Jacks there. There's a snooty fox where apparently Prince William used to drink, or Harry, one of their watering holes. And this is the town hall, the Shire Hall. I don't know if you can see it. Beautiful in the middle of town. And apparently the mayor stood on the steps to proclaim Charles King earlier today. I was at Highgrove, so I didn't see that, but I was told the mayor was going to proclaim Charles King. But there we go. Union Jacks everywhere. And this is what I wanted to show you. Look at this. This is a Mayfair and Grace. This is a beauty salon, and I don't know if you can see, I'll walk down and show you. It says in a blackboard, it's quite clear how much Charles means to the people in this town. Look at this. God save the king. And I'll turn around and let you have a look. I don't know if you can see the flags there. And they've got it going the other way as well. God save the king. I'm going to take you down here now. And as you can see, life is going on as normal. But there is a definite sense that it's a momentous day, that this is something that we won't see again, that this is something that's affected us all really, because she's been there throughout our life, a thread that's held us, the nation, together throughout the lie. And the constant, I think, is making people feel very uncertain. And it's also a reminder for many people about people they've lost during the pandemic. People have been saying to me, it's brought it back. They've lost people and now they feel like they've lost another member of the family. It's reminded them of grandparents and parents and loved ones that they've lost, because it's been a tough time, the pandemic, and I think this has hit people hard. Let me just show you. This is Prince Charles Highgrove shop. I don't know if you can see that. And there we go. The windows are covered. There we go, Highgrove. This is where Prince Charles sells his wares from the Duchy, or King Charles. Apologies for that. It's where King Charles sells his wares. It'll be interesting to see what happens now when Prince William takes over the Duchy. It's said that King Charles will stay on at Highgrove while his son stays at Windsor. But of course, Prince William, now Prince of Wales, grew up a few miles from here. This was his local town. This was his stomping ground when he was young. This is where his mother used to bring him into town to see the fireworks, to see the lights. There we go. And that's what it's famous for, Highgrove, the antiques. Okay. So, I'll just take you for another walk through. I don't know. Exactly what else to say, so I'll just take you for a walk through so you can actually see what's happening here. Prince Charles has left Balmoral this morning. He's got no doubt in London now, making preparations for a period of mourning that will go on for 7 days after the Queen's funeral. But when he comes back here as King Charles, nobody knows at the minute. It might be some time. He's been spending time in Scotland at his house, Dumfries House, with his mother, and he's trying to model a bit of Highgrove on what's happening on Dumfries House to save it for the future. But we don't know when he'll be coming back. But no doubt this town is ready and willing to welcome their king and queen, whenever that might be. at the moment. People are mourning the monarch, the Queen. Apparently Zara is a regular visitor to this town as well. And there's a shop over there. I think this is the one, Molo. Can't be 100% sure, but one of these shops along here was the one. They've got a royal story to tell. When Catherine, who's now the Princess of Wales, was courting Prince William and she came to Highgrove, she went into this shop here to look at some garments and ended up getting absolutely besieged because someone leaked that she was here, and the paparazzi descended and they had to lock her in the shop, and she was locked in the shop. It's quite amazing to think that one day she'll be queen, and she went in to look into this shop for a coat and ended up being locked in, not being able to get out, having to be smuggled out through the back. There's sentiments where people have been buying the flowers. And I'm trying to see which one of these shops, I can't remember. There's one of these shops that used to be a dress shop that apparently Lady Diana used to use and have her go upstairs to try on the dresses so nobody would know. And there's the clock tower with the steps where the official proclamations are made. I'm sorry I couldn't bring you pictures from outside Highgrove as planned. The signal wasn't strong enough, kept going in and out, so in case you don't know where we are and you're wondering what's happening, it's Janet Hughes here. Yeah, it's Janet Hughes here. I'm in Tetbury, which is the home of King Charles now, and where people have come. It's a bit of a touchstone. People have been going to Buckingham Palace, and they've been going to Windsor, and they've been going to Balmoral, but this is where people around the Cotswolds come. This is their royal touchstone. This is where King Charles lives and has lived for decades. This is where Prince William and Prince Harry were brought up. This is where the royals come when they're off duty. Princess Anne lives down the road. Her daughter Zara Tyndall and son Peter Phillips. And we're back to the church now. The vicar apparently, I was talking to the curate today, the vicar apparently of this church has been getting ready for the service tonight. How do you find the words? Somehow she's got to. There'll be services all over the country. But at this church they'll be thinking about one of their own. They'll be thinking of King Charles, who lives about 2 miles down that road. They'll be thinking of King Charles and the burden he can have, you can see it, to Today there was supposed to be a lot of tourists here. Here we go. This is the Tourist Information Centre. They're expecting a lot of people here as part of the Tour of Britain cycle ride, which was supposed to come through here at 9 o'clock. At 1 o'clock this afternoon, and it didn't. What was quite interesting, those rainbows yesterday. We didn't have a rainbow in Tetbury, but as the church bells rang out, the sun did come from behind the clouds. And as someone said, it was as if it had been sent to warm everybody up, because everybody was a bit cold and damp in the churchyard this morning. And then when the bells started ringing in honour of Her Majesty the Queen, who died yesterday, the sun came out above the church. Here we go. We'll go over and have a look again at what it says on this notice board. Here we go. That's the road there that leads to the home of our new king. When he'll see it again, we don't know. But it'll be his sanctuary, his retreat. It's where he always comes when he wants to feel at home. It's where he's created his organic garden that attract people from all over the world. It's a far cry from Buckingham Palace. It's very beautiful, but it's a far cry from Buckingham Palace. It's his real home. And this is his church. This morning, things had to be changed. If you look here, the churchyard was supposed to be closed today because they were removing a fir tree that was clogging. The roots were growing around the sewage system, and it was supposed to be closed, but after the announcement yesterday, everything had to be rushed through so that the church could be open first thing this morning for those wishing to pay the respects. It's very peaceful here. Yeah. It's no wonder that everybody came and gathered here this morning. People bonded as well. The lady from Cardiff, who I spoke to, would come because she was here. She'd been visiting here with her father, who loved it here and loved royalty, when Prince William was born, and they'd rung the church bells here then, and she felt drawn to come back today and hear the church bells again. And she'd met, while buying flowers, she'd met another lady. I'm trying to find her name here. Alison Berry. And she's a local lady. And she was buying flowers as well. And they both bonded over the sadness. And they say, Alison said something that I've heard so many times today. The first ladies I spoke to said the same thing. Alison said, I'm not particularly royalist, but I absolutely adored her. I'm just really, really sad. And that's Alison Berry, and she met Andrea Mohammed from Cardiff and in the flower shop, and the pair of them had sat here and swapped memories of the Queen and the royal family. And it was like as if people wanted to be together. They were sat here on benches, and there was a constant stream of people coming in and out of that church this morning. People of all ages and all backgrounds, all wanting to do the same, to honour the Queen and to express their sympathy for King Charles, who has lost his mother. And has not only lost his mother, he now has to take over and reign immediately. So I'm just letting you have a look a bit more. One lady was telling me how she was finding it difficult to work because she couldn't stop crying. And I think someone else summed it up when they wrote, "In loving memory, Queen Elizabeth, our thoughts are with the royal family at this sad time." I think that's all we really need to say, isn't it? Can you see it's just like a steady, it's not packed, there's no long queues, but there's just a steady stream of people. And as I say, this churchyard was full this morning. And the first people I met, Margaret Alcock and Merle Sadler. Merle was 88, Margaret was 82. Margaret said that she'd put a black jacket on to make she was due to come here anyway from Birmingham, but she put a black jacket on in memory of the Queen and in honour of the Queen, because it was only the right thing to do. And Merle just said that basically that I'm not a monarchist, but she was a wonderful Queen. And you hear this over and over again, no matter what your thoughts are about the monarchy. It seems the Queen as a person was universally loved. So it's very peaceful here. The curate has been here all day, by the looks of things. Every time I popped in, he's been there, greeting people, telling people welcome, comforting those who need it, because there's some people that do. There's some people who are very upset. There's some people who are very tearful. And the church is here for them. As he says, it's appropriate, as the head of the Church of England, it's appropriate that the church opens its doors to those, whoever they are. The church has to open the doors. Here we go. It's a beautiful church, isn't it? Can you see? You don't know how long it'll be before King Charles walks through those doors again with his Queen, Camilla. And he's ready. Tetbury is waiting for him with open arms. Okay, I think we've seen all we can say. If you're wondering where I am, I'm in the churchyard. It's very peaceful. The churchyard of St Mary's in Tetbury, which is the hometown of King Charles. He's lived here since he bought Highgrove House in 1980. This is the church, his local church. This is the church where the royals came recently when Princess Anne's stepdaughter got married. So the royals were Princess Anne, Zara, Peter Phillips. So this is the church where Prince Charles and Camilla come, and this is a town that knows him as a man who has in the past, not as a king, but as a man who's popped in to see the local school and plant a tree, or come to the church service, or turn on the Christmas lights. He's not an ordinary man from Tetbury. He's not a man in the street, but he is one of theirs. He's part of this community. So we're in the churchyard where people have been coming all day to sign a book of condolences, say a prayer, light a candle, and just generally sit, mourn the Queen, and pass on their sympathies to King Charles and his Queen Camilla. And with that, I think I'll say goodbye. I've no doubt. Just having 5 minutes to think of the Queen. She's reigned for 70 years now. I think a few of us can remember life without her. And like the people he was saying, they actually feel like they've lost a member of the family. King Charles has lost a member of his family. His mother, I heard someone today on the radio say, when he broke the news, he said something along the lines of, Mum's gone. Because she wasn't the Queen to him, she was his mother. And the matriarch of this country. So I'm going to go from Tetbury, and I shall speak again